Welcome to Your Future Starts Now, the go-to podcast for extraordinary women who are ready to step into their next chapter with authentic confidence. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua, empowerment coach, motivational speaker, children's book author, and girl mom. Whether you're a corporate powerhouse or an entrepreneur, this show is designed for you. Your Future Starts Now is more than just a podcast. It's a movement towards rewriting the rules of success for high-achieving women. Are you ready to get unstuck and step into your next chapter? If so, you're exactly where you need to be. Your future starts now. Welcome to Your Future Starts Now. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua. I want to thank you for joining us today. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Dr. Justin Moseley to the show. Dr. Justin is also known as the Mindset Doctor. He's a highly sought-after international keynote speaker. After surviving a near-death accident in 2018, Dr. Justin shifted from changing lives in his clinic to changing lives all over the world. Dr. Justin is a two-time TEDx speaker and host of the Mindset Doctor podcast, and his thought leadership has been featured on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. Dr. Justin helps people master their minds so they can unlock their full potential, fulfill their deepest desires, and create next-level success and abundance in their business and every area of life. Dr. Justin, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited for this.
I'm so excited to chat with you today. Thanks for being here. So tell us, just so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, you were a chiropractor once upon a time. Tell us what led you to the work you're doing today.
Yeah, so I was a chiropractor by trade. My wife's a chiropractor as well. We still have a clinic outside of Nashville, Tennessee. Opened our clinic in 2012 and built a great clinic. Family practice. We were helping lots of people, making a difference. Fast forward to 2018 is when I had a near-death accident that completely changed the trajectory of my life. So I went on a men's retreat and we went whitewater rafting. And we hit the class 5 rapids and it was just a freak accident. Our raft tipped over and I was sitting on the back of the raft and I got trapped underneath the rapid itself. And it started pushing me underwater. And I still remember the sound of my helmet scraping down the rocks as I was being pushed under. And the last thing I remember thinking is, I'm not coming back up. And everything went black. And then everything went bright white. And it was the most peaceful, serene feeling I'd ever felt. And I don't know how long I'd lost consciousness, but I heard a voice that said, wake up. And thankfully I did, because I came back to consciousness and I was trapped underwater, wedged between two rocks. And I tried to push and I didn't budge. And I kept pushing and pushing. And then thankfully my adrenaline kicked in and I was able to push hard enough that I broke the buckle on my life jacket that was trapped underneath one of the rocks, floated to the top, gasped for breath, got swept down the river. And at that point I was rocked. And for all of us, at some point we question, like, what is the purpose of life? Like, why are we here? But in that moment, I asked a different question. I said, why am I still here? Because things could have been different in that moment. Like, what if I didn't hear wake up? Or what if I wasn't strong enough to break free? So I asked myself, why am I still here? And the thing is, I was living my purpose. I was helping people. I was making a difference. But I realized I was playing way too small. I knew I could make such a bigger impact. And what I realized is I'd gotten comfortable in life because life was good. I was helping people. We were making money. I was traveling with my wife, doing the things I enjoyed. But I knew if I truly wanted to step into the calling that was on my life, I needed to exchange my comfort for my calling. So that's when I started processing that. And I was like, man, I just want to put out content that helps people. And that's how I started. I kind of shifted gears. I was like, I don't know if anybody's going to listen. I'm just going to put myself out there. I don't know if you ever felt that. Like, we'll see. But I put it out there and I started the first of 2020. I started a Facebook group, January 2020, and 1,000 people joined in the first month. So I was like, okay, people are listening. And it just kept leading to more opportunities, speaking, leading mastermind retreats, different coaching and those type of things. So it's been a wild ride, but it's been a lot of fun. And now I've just did my second TED Talk. I did one in 2022 talking about my lessons I learned from my near-death accident. But what I learned from that is I started speaking all over, and a lot of people would reach out to me like, I love what you're doing. I wish I could do that, but I'm terrified of speaking. And I was like, wait a minute. I was terrified. For most of my life, I had a tremendous fear of public speaking. So that's what I just did my second TED Talk on, is how I overcame my fear of public speaking. Because I believe everybody's got a message to share, and there's a message inside of you the world is waiting to hear. So that was a message on my heart that I wanted to share with the world, and just crossed 177,000 views, I think. So I'm excited about the traction it's getting.
That's incredible. What an incredible story. And thank you for sharing. I have so many questions. I don't know where to start. So first of all, I mean, what a horrific experience you went through. What do you attribute that voice that you heard to?
Yeah, so I'm a believer, so I believe that was the voice of God for me. And it was one of those, I didn't hear an audible voice. It was one of those inner knowings, like you
Mm,
know that you know, like it was a wake up.
mhm.
And it was just in that moment, and it was a literal wake up call for me. Like I
Yeah.
heard that. It was a wake up call in that moment, but it was a wake up call for my life that I really needed to step back and be like, hey, what are we doing? Because for most people, we are going through the motions of life.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it takes something like a near death accident. Maybe it's a car wreck or loss of a loved one, or we hit this rock bottom before we actually change. The good news is you don't need a near death accident or you don't need a rock bottom moment in order to change. The cool thing is you can ask yourself the same question I asked myself. Why am I still here? Because life is a gift. You didn't have to wake up today, but you did. So if you're
Mhm.
listening to this, you got air in your lungs, your heart is beating, ask yourself, why am I still here? And once you answer that question, it can change everything.
Yeah. I love that. And so your message is everyone has a message to share,
Yeah.
right? And in order to spread that message, you do have to put yourself out there. So talk to us a little bit about kind of go a little bit deeper into the everyone has a message to share and what that means to you, but also, how do you go about putting yourself out there?
Yeah. So I think it goes back to, I know a mutual friend of ours is Rory Vaden. Because there's a long time that I didn't think I had a message to share. Like I looked at other people. I was like, man, I want to share. I want to speak. I want to do what they're doing. But who am I to share anything? But Rory has the quote that you are perfectly positioned to serve the person you once were. And I love that because everybody's got a story. You can look
Sure.
back through your life. There's things that you've gone through, there's challenges you've faced, obstacles you've overcome. There's things you've been through in your life. You can take those lessons you've learned and give those to someone else because there's someone right now going through what you went through in the past, and you can actually help them by just sharing your story. So that's kind of where I started. I just kind of looked at, well, what have I been through? And what have I learned? What did I spend time studying? Like, how can I take all this? I went through that for a reason. How can
Mhm.
I use that to help someone else?
Absolutely. And I think what you said is important, right? Whether you're starting on Facebook or you're starting with a one-on-one conversation or a small group conversation where you're, having an impact on people is important. And you and I both talk about impact in the
Mhm.
work that we do. In the
Yeah.
work I do, I talk about radical prioritization for high
Mm.
achieving women. And one of the pillars of my framework is impact, right? What
Mm.
is the impact you want to have? And I love that you said we're going through the motions because a lot of us are, successful on the outside, but unfulfilled on the inside. And
Mm.
I think purpose and impact are play an important role in helping to bridge that gap for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So maybe talk to us about your perspective on impact and how we should be thinking about that.
Yeah, and I go back to one of my earliest influences was Tony Robbins. I still have the book from Awaken the Giant Within. I got when I was 16. And that was for me because I struggled with lack of self-esteem and
Mhm.
lack of self-worth. And I found myself in the bookstore, the self-help section, and this book just spoke to me. And I read it and it changed my life. It opened my mind to if you change your mind, you can change your life. So for me, it's looking back on he taught me two things. Like people want either growth, they want growth and contribution. So we need to be physically growing ourselves, but we also, how are we going to contribute to the world? And I think that's where the impact piece comes in. But what I've found is most people, they downplay their own impact they can make. They think my purpose has to be some grand Mother Teresa sized vision, or I got to solve world hunger or the water crisis or something like that. It could be as little as putting a smile on someone's face today. You could go to the gas station right now and the clerk's just having a bad day and you could just lift her up and put a smile on her face. That's the impact you could make. Or it could be your kids being able to put a smile on their face. We got holidays, first of the year, all these things. There's people around you in your circle of influence right now that you can make an impact in. The thing is, are you intentional? And I believe we have to live our life by intention, not by default. And
Mhm.
too often we're just going through the motions, living by default versus what if I actually looked around? There's so many opportunities to make an impact in the lives of people around me. And the cool thing is when you impact other people, it lifts you up. And that's one of the things I love about it as well. It's just this energy that just kind of cycles through us. As we give to others, we get that back in return.
Absolutely. It's funny. You just reminded me just yesterday, I was not having a very good morning and I went to get gas for my car. And as I pull in the gas station that I normally go to, the attendant was, well, I live in New Jersey, so we have attendants for gas. We're not allowed to pump our own gas.
Right.
He was blaring Christmas music, dancing, very festive, so joyful. And I looked at him, I said, wow, he's got it figured out. This guy right here, intention, purpose, and he was just exuding that, and it totally changed the course of my day. So there's absolute truth in that.
Right. And it all comes back to energy. And it reminds me of a Tony Robbins story. He talks about you can have all the wealth in the world and be miserable, or you can go to the projects right now and just see a mom with just this big smile on her face, just loving on her kids.
For sure.
Who is happy in that moment? Whoever chooses to be happy. So that's the good thing about the people around us. When we open up our own eyes, because life happens, stuff is going to happen to us. But when we can just look at it as a blessing, that life's not happening to us, it's happening for us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's different levels of that. That's usually where people start or stop. But I believe, yes, life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. But then it happens by us, and then it happens through us. What I mean by that, by us, by our thoughts, our feelings, our actions that we're taking, we're creating the environment around us. So when we open up that life isn't happening to us and all these things just keep happening, no, it happened because of the way you've either thinking, feeling, or acting over time. Those results in your inner world show up in your outside world. So as more you can be consciously aware of your thoughts, how you're feeling, and how you're acting, you're going to get a different result. So it's not happening to you, it's happening for you, happening by you, then it's happening through you. Because the things in your outer world are not just for you, you affect everyone that comes into your sphere. Just like that man, the attendant, helped you by blaring that music, he was having an impact on your life. Well, that's the same thing we can do. By changing our own inner thoughts, feelings, and actions, we shift our environment and we shift the people around us and make a positive impact.
Yeah, 100%. And I love how you brought the thinking and the beliefs into it, because it's something I wanted to touch on. You talk about in your TED Talk, you you had a fear of speaking, and today you're an international speaker and two-time TEDx speaker. But that took a lot of courage and bravery, right? And intention behind that to overcome that fear, which, by the way, I think public speaking is like the number one fear that people have.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Of all the fears. But you brought up something really important that I want to touch upon, which is you call it a childhood memory that's stuck with you from school, right?
Yeah.
And in the coaching world, we talk about them as limiting beliefs, right? Yep. And those are the scripts that we hold on to. Those are the scripts that we tell ourselves about who we are not, what we're capable of, and what we're not capable of.
Exactly.
And so I would love your take on, from your perspective, how that childhood memory rooted itself for you and what you did to overcome it.
Absolutely. Because our limiting beliefs are what hold us back from accomplishing what we want to accomplish. And the cool thing about it is usually we can go back on our life and track, like, where did this come from? And for me, I went all the way back to in second grade when I had to read in front of the class and I was stumbling over my words and the kids started laughing at me. It anchored into my mind, you should just be quiet. Nobody wants to hear from you. And I became really shy and reserved. And that followed me through high school, got into college. I almost failed a speech class because I had a panic attack during my speech. And again, that further anchored into my mind, this is not for you. You should give this up. You should never speak in public. But I kept feeling this feeling inside of like, I've got a message to share. Mm-hmm. And like, I was influenced by Tony Robbins and I would see him on stage and how he can make this impact through thousands of people. I was like, man, I want to do that. But the fear kept holding me back. And that's when I realized, like, if I truly want to step into my calling, I've got to overcome this fear. So for me, you got to identify the fear. You got to say, where is this coming from? And then realize that's not who you are. That might be where you're at in this moment, but you can shift it. You can change limiting beliefs. You can learn any skill. And one of the best ways to do it is, for me, this is what I did. I saw myself as Tony Robbins. Not trying to be Tony Robbins. I put myself in, so visualized him on stage. What would it be to look through his eyes? to feel what he feels. How does he use his body? How does he use his words and his inflections and all the things that he does? And I would visualize myself doing it over and over. And that's been a big thing that I teach on, is the power of not just visualization, but actually mental rehearsal. And the more I started doing that, the more I became that. The more I started to get comfortable. The cool thing about the mind is the mind can't tell the difference between something real and vividly imagined. So, and I don't know, you probably dive into a lot of this stuff, but there's a couple studies I really like. Is the one they did with basketball players, and they had 3 different groups to shoot free throws. Group 1, you're going to shoot every single day for 30 days. Group 2, you're not going to touch a basketball. Group 3, you're not going to touch a basketball, but you're going to vividly imagine, mentally rehearse shooting a basketball every single day. So sit there in your chair, close your eyes, but feel what it feels like to hold this imaginary ball. Hear what it sounds like to dribble it. Feel what it feels like to follow through and see it going through the air, hear it going through the net. And they did that over and over. Into the study, group 1 got 24% better. Group 2 didn't get any better. But group 3, they didn't touch a basketball, but vividly imagined it, got 23% better. Only 1% difference than the people that shot a basketball every single day. That's the power of the mind. And Joe Dispenza shares a study, people that couldn't play piano, do a one-handed piano exercise. Group 2, you're not going to touch a piano, vividly imagine it. Feel what it feels like. Group 1, at the end of that study, they actually got the same level of proficiency playing the piano. And the cool thing about that study, they did MRIs of their brain, and the exact same parts of their brain were firing, whether they were physically playing or just vividly imagining it. So for me, that's been a game changer for me, is vividly imagine having the confidence, being able to speak, seeing people as I look out. I did this before I had my first TED Talk. I saw what it was going to be like standing in that red circle, the lights coming down, the buzz of the microphone. When I'm looking out, people are nodding with me as I'm speaking. It happened exactly the way that I'd rehearsed it in my mind so many times. Yeah. And a lot of people ask me, like, were you nervous getting up there? I was like, no, because I'd already seen it in my mind so many times. I'd felt like I'd done it before.
Incredible. Incredible. So the power of visualization.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And the key is there too, it's not visualizing like seeing something on a movie screen. It's actually rehearsing it with your own body. The more you can involve your own senses, and that's where I like see what they see, feel what they feel, hear what they hear. The more your senses are involved, the more real it's going to be to your body and to your own nervous system to be like, oh, you've already done this. Like riding a bike. Once you learn it, you don't unlearn it. You get the confidence, I can do this. So
like watching a movie, right? Where and visualizing yourself as the star in that movie.
Yeah. And most people, that's a good point. Most people are not even the star in their own movie. They're playing a backup role in their life.
That's right.
So you need to be the star of the show. And the more you visualize yourself and experience it, the more you're going to think it's real and the more you're going to become it.
Absolutely. And so, along those lines, you talk about, you empower people to exchange their comfort for their calling. Mm-hmm. And I know you mentioned that earlier. So tell us a little bit about what that means and how we can shift our energy to start stepping into our calling.
Yeah. So a couple powerful questions I love to get people. Number one is, what do you want? And that's the hardest question for people to answer. A lot of times when you ask them what they want, they tell you all the things I don't want. I don't want to work these hours. I don't want to travel here or do that or whatever their not want list is. So a great thing to do is write all that out. And then on the other side of the page, what's the opposite of that? But get really clear. You've got to have the vision for it. Without vision, people perish. You've got to have a vision for your life. Mm-hmm. So step one, what do you want? And then here's the powerful question. Who do you need to become in order to achieve that? So I have a guy, do you know Dan Martell? So I had him on my podcast. And one of the things that he talks about is the person that you need to become to achieve your goals is not who you are today. If you were already that person, you would have already achieved it. So we have to constantly grow. So we need a vision that's big enough that causes us to grow. But then we need to look at the areas of our life. Like, where do we need to grow to become the person we need to become that can achieve that goal? So a lot of it is taking the time to get clear. What do I want? And then who do I actually need to become? And if you set out to become that person each and every day on the trajectory to hit your goals, you're going to do it.
Yeah, it's such a powerful question is what do you want? I think you're right. I think we don't ask ourselves that question enough.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're so focused on the external and all the things that are coming at us, and we're sort of in reactive defensive mode.
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
for us to tune in or for someone to say to you, what do you truly want? And I think, that's true for men and women, but especially high achieving women, working moms who are, constantly giving, serving, and they have so much on their plate. For them to
Mhm.
pause and really be introspective about what is it that I want can feel selfish.
Absolutely. And I want to shift that. Let's reframe that because I hear that a lot. And I know you hear that a lot.
Mhm.
So it's actually selfish if you don't put the time in. Because think about how much more, and I give props. I even look at my mom growing up. She gave to everyone else, which is amazing. But the more you give to yourself and figure out what you truly want, the better you're going to serve the people around you.
Absolutely.
I was just at an event, it's been a couple months ago now, but Marcus Lemonis was speaking, and he asked somebody in the crowd about their business, and they were like, "Yeah, we're here to serve people," and they were like, "We're people over profits." And he was like, "Yeah, I get that, and that's a great tagline." But it's like you got to shift it. You got to be profit driven, but realizing the profit is where you make the impact in people's lives
Mhm.
because profit is in exchange for value. So I think it's the same thing, getting a clear vision, especially like the moms that you talked about, get it, or the women in general, don't have to be a mom, but the more clear you are of the vision that you have and who you want to become, the better you're going to serve the people around you because you're going to show up as your best self.
Absolutely. I think that is such a powerful mindset shift. And I couldn't agree more. But that's a tough shift for people. And I think it also ties into the identity piece, right? When
Yep,
we tie our value and our worth to something outside of ourselves. For many of
absolutely.
us, it's a job, it's a
Yep.
profession, it's a career.
Yeah, I went through that myself. Like, yeah, because I was a chiropractor by trade, and I
Yeah.
physically could not do my job. I blew my shoulder out, and I was actually adjusting people. My shoulder would go out the back. I would pop it back in and keep
Man.
adjusting because, like, man, I'm here to help these people. But it got to the point I couldn't even lift my arm, and so I had to stop adjusting. And I had stem cell done on it. Thankfully, it healed me up. But there was a period of time there because my identity was a chiropractor. I'm an
Yeah.
amazing chiropractor and now I can't do it. What am I going to do? And I realized in that period that chiropractic is not who I am. That's just what I do. And it allowed me to go deeper and be like, who am I? I'm a person that's called to make a positive impact in the lives of others. Chiropractic was just a vehicle of doing that.
Mhm.
So it gave myself permission to say, hey, there's other ways I can make an impact. So same thing with anyone listening. If you've identified with who you are in your job or your role as a parent or spouse or all those things, those are labels we've given ourselves. But what's the deeper meaning? For me, the impact, like we were talking about, how can I do that on a larger scale, not be labeled to this one thing right here?
Yes. And I mean, it's a perfect example of that personal transformation, right? And
Mm,
and I love how, you have all this background, experience, education that you've invested. But that doesn't mean you had to throw it out the window, right? You just
true. Yeah.
built on that foundation that you created for yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was able to, and it kind of came full circle because the more I started putting myself out there and just trying to help other people, other chiropractors started reaching out to me and they were like, hey, man, I'm struggling with my business. And
Hmm.
the cool thing, I'm sure you see this with the people you work with, especially if they're business owners, it's usually not a business problem. It wasn't their systems or procedures. It was all their level of mindset and personal development that was holding them back. So once they got out of their own way, their systems and procedures started to work. And I was actually able to give back to the chiropractic profession because I was one of them. Like I had been through it, I'd lived it, and then I kind of helped them get unlocked, and then their business would take off. So that's the cool thing is, and one of my mentors told me a long time ago, is like businesses don't have problems. Businesses have people, and people have problems. So
Hmm.
that's usually the hardest part is dealing with the people around you. But the biggest person is yourself. You got to
Yeah,
get out of your own way.
absolutely. And it's so much easier to point the finger, right?
For sure. Yeah.
All the other variables and people.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, for sure, whether you're just starting out in your career, whether you're transitioning, whether you're a C-suite level executive, that's why so many C-suites have coaches, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. For
Yeah,
sure.
it's a great point. So, Dr. Justin, you talk about next level success. I would love to know what that means, and maybe how can we think about unlocking our next level success?
Yeah, great question. And it's changed even recently for me because I've always been a big vision guy. I want to help people, I want to make a difference. And then I can't remember where I heard it, but somebody was talking about maybe it could have been Dan Martell, but he was like, you want a mentor that's just a few steps ahead of you. Like right now, I wouldn't reach out to Elon Musk and ask him to help me with my business because he's thinking so far ahead of me. Whatever advice he would give me I wouldn't be able to comprehend it because
Maybe
he's
next
too
year,
far
though.
ahead. That's true. Yeah, maybe by next year, that's going to be a different
Next year.
conversation. But he's like, as of right now, you want to
Yeah.
get mentors that are just a couple steps ahead of you because they just lived it. They just went through it and they can help you. So I think next level success, yes, it's great to have the big vision, but just break it down. What's the next thing that I can do? Who do I need to become? Because you got to be clear. What can I do? But who do I need to become? And then look for the people around you. That's why I love connecting with cool people like this through a podcast. It's like build your network of people who can encourage you, inspire you to actually make it happen. Because the problem is a lot of people have the people around them that are telling them why they can't do it. And a lot of people ask me like, well, if I set goals, should I tell people about it? And I believe you should and you shouldn't. If you tell the wrong people, they'll tell you why you can't do it. But if you tell the right people, they will actually encourage you, inspire you. They'll actually help you reach your goal. So I think it starts with back to that vision, but looking at what's the next thing. What are the next 3 steps on the way to step 20? How can I get here? And then once you get there, it might require new mentors, new coaches, a new group around you. But if we can keep moving forward, it goes back to that growth and contribution. We're going to be growing. There's going to be more resources that we can contribute to the world.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful and makes so much sense. And then, so we talk about success and defining and redefining success on this podcast. Tell us how you define success for yourself today and maybe how that's shifted or evolved for you over time.
Yeah, I think for me, it's really being able to do what I want, when I want, with who I want. And I think in the past, it was if you get a certain title, if you make a certain amount of money, you do those things. But really, I mean, I think it's one, being able to enjoy your own life. The things don't matter if you're not happy. The things don't matter if the people around you are unhappy. So I think it's finding the joy and the peace in the day-to-day and then having the freedom to do what you want. I think that's success for me.
Amazing. And I would love to know, can you share maybe a practical exercise, or I know you've shared so much wisdom and insight already, but any other mindset shifts that you want listeners to take away from today's episode?
Oh, good question. Because I think a mindset shift for people, one, we've all heard about morning routines. And I believe morning routines are great. A morning routine sets up your day, but it's your evening routine that sets up your life. So before you fall asleep, I want you to get a clear vision of what you want. And I want you to create a scene in your mind of you actually, as it's already happened. You're already living it. I did this before my TED Talk the first time, seeing myself already as a TEDx speaker. Like I'd already been there so many times in my mind, because as you sleep, your subconscious mind begins to process that. So, and I've actually got a free giveaway. It's called my baseball technique, which actually teaches you how to program your subconscious mind before you fall asleep, because I think that's such an important time. And as you start to do that, you can start to use that in other areas of your life to attract more success, abundance, relationships, whatever you want to do. But I think the shift there is the morning routine sets up your day, but the evening routine sets up your life. So if you can start focusing on what you're putting in your mind before you fall asleep, it's going to make a huge impact in your life.
I love that. That is incredible advice. And I definitely agree with you there, because I think the morning routine is a great way to set up your day, but the bedtime routine is really where you're focused on the broad strokes, right? You're thinking more strategically about your life. Or at least that's the way I find it.
Yeah. And then the cool thing about it is as you fall asleep, then your brain's going to process it.
Yeah.
And that's the cool thing about, if you look back to like Leonardo da Vinci and Benjamin Franklin, they took naps during the day because they weren't trying to consciously solve their problems. When we're consciously thinking through it, we're in the high beta brainwaves. But when we can slow down into our alpha brainwaves and even lower into theta, that's when we can get the creative juices flowing. So they would have problems that they were trying to solve. They would get themselves in a relaxed state, almost to the point of sleep, and then sometimes even take a nap. And then they would wake up with the idea solved. So that's the cool thing about the mind and how it works. So we got to calm the noise and get more present.
Incredible. And I love it. So it's true. The creativity comes out and you start thinking outside the box subconsciously, right? Before it
Absolutely.
comes to conscious.
Yeah.
Amazing. Dr. Justin, this has been so amazing. Where can our listeners learn more about you, the work that you do? Where can they listen to your TED Talks and download the baseball technique?
Yeah, so the baseball technique you can get, so drjustinmoseley.com. I've got a lot of free resources there. I think just drjustinmoseley.com/links. My TED Talks are also there too, but you can just go to YouTube and just put in Justin Moseley TED Talk and they'll both come up. Most recent one, I would love your support on that. It's, like I said, reached 177,000. Let's keep it going, man. If it reached 1 million people around the world, I get nothing for people watching my talk, but knowing I got to impact people. And the cool thing, the first one I did, there's a comment on there that, because I talked a lot about purpose and the lessons I learned from my near-death accident, somebody put a comment that said, my 9-year-old daughter listened to your talk and said she wants to wake up with a purpose. So I was like,
Wow.
how cool is that? The impact you can make through a platform like that. So I would love support on my latest TED Talk, How I Overcame My Fear of Public Speaking. And I think that can help anyone, whether you're a confident speaker or not. I think there's stuff in there for anyone. So that, or Instagram at Dr. Justin Moseley. I'm very active on there. Would love to connect with anyone there as well.
Perfect. So much valuable advice. I want to thank you for being here, for sharing your story, your insights, and your expertise. This has been an incredible conversation. So thank you.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And of course, you can visit my website at gialacqua.com, reach out on Instagram at Gia Lacqua. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. This is Gia signing off with gratitude for your time and energy. Our mic drops, but the movement continues. Until next time, your next chapter is waiting. Take care.
That concludes another empowering episode of Your Future Starts Now. Before we wrap up, I want to thank this incredible community of high-achieving women. Your energy, resilience, and commitment to growth are the driving force behind what we do. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate it, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower high-achieving women just like you. And of course, share Your Future Starts Now with the extraordinary women in your life who are also on a journey of healing and empowerment. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, let us know what topics you'd like to explore in future episodes. Stay connected on Instagram at Gia Lacqua. I encourage you to carry the energy of this conversation into your day and keep on supporting the incredible women around you. Until next time, remember, your next chapter is waiting.